Hey, Alan Rowland again. Today I want to give you a short presentation on how Jasper, Alabama got its name. You're probably unaware of that. Unless you were a student of mine at Bevel State Community College, you probably don't know that. If you were a student, you definitely do know that. My family moved to Jasper, Alabama in 1956, and I was 7 years old at that time. And I thought to myself, even then, Jasper, that's kind of a strange name, an odd name, and it stuck in my mind, how did Jasper actually get its name? And it would not be until probably 10 years after that, maybe not quite that long, 12 years after that, that I finally realized how it got its name. And Jasper is named for Sergeant William Jasper. So let's go to my documents camera here, and like I said, this is just going to be a short presentation, but I want to tell you about Sergeant William Jasper. There's not a whole lot that we know about him. Before the American Revolutionary War, he was born somewhere around the year 1750 near Georgetown, South Carolina. He could not read or write. That's what we call today being illiterate. And the first exposure that we find to his name is he was on a record here, a service record, as a part of Company C, 2nd South Carolina Regiment, and he was a sergeant. This unit was commanded by a captain at that time. His name was Francis Marion. Later, he would become a very, very distinguished, shall we say, patriot leader, and we would be promoted to the rank of lieutenant colonel. And he picked up the nickname of the Swamp Fox. And I can remember as a young boy, the Disney Channel, or I shouldn't say Disney Channel, but the Disney program came out with a weekly series which was called the Swamp Fox. And all of us kids on Valley Road, we'd all dress up as a Swamp Fox, and we would run around, and play Revolutionary War hero, that sort of thing too. So anyway, it was somebody that I was familiar with even back, many, many years ago. And what's kind of interesting here is that for Sergeant Jasper, he is a sergeant. He cannot read or write. So he must have had some distinguishing qualities as a part of this. Now, he was present at Fort Sullivan, and I'll show you a little schematic of it in just a few minutes. Fort Sullivan was later known as Fort Moultrie, but let's take ourselves to the 28th of June in 1776. This is right in the beginning of the Revolutionary War, and Fort Sullivan was commanded by Colonel Moultrie. Later it would be named Fort Moultrie, and he was defending this fort from the British. And what he had here was a 31 artillery pieces, those are cannons, artillery pieces, in a hastily constructed, crudely constructed fortress, which was made up of sand. That's all it was, a lot of sand in this area. If you ever go up to Charleston, South Carolina, you'll see this. And it had palmetto logs. Now, palmetto is a tree, so you cut these trees down, and you just have this sand and log fort. Like I said, it was defended by 38 guns here, and 31 artillery pieces, there. And the sole mission of this group, of the 2nd South Carolina Regiment, was to defend the entrance to Charleston Harbor and defend it against the British Navy, the Royal Navy, that was going to sail in. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. And if we take a look at the hastily drawn schematic here showing you Charleston and Charleston Harbor. Now, all of this area here is Charleston Harbor. Back in this area, this is Atlantic Ocean here. Here are the British ships that are approaching. I'll tell you the names of those ships in just a few minutes. There were 10 ships, and as they were approaching, what they had to do was enter into the harbor here, and what their goal was to take Charleston back here. It's about 3 miles away from the entrance here to the harbor back to here. Very beautiful city, old city, fun place to have vacation if you wish to do so. But defending this city was where Fort Sullivan was, which was here. And that's where Sergeant William Jasper was, where Colonel Moultrie was present. There's 2nd South Carolina Brigade here. Now, if you go there today, you'll see a man-made island, which is right here. I've just penciled it in here. It was not there during the Revolutionary War. Today, there's a fort on it, which you probably are familiar with, which is called Fort Sumter. And that's where the opening shots of the Civil War were found there. Alrighty, so anyway, you get the idea here. So the British ships are coming here, and we have over here at Fort Moultrie 31 guns here trying to protect the entrance, prevent the British from coming in. So let's move away from that map there of the harbor, and we'll take a look here at the British Navy. Now, this is the Royal Navy. They had with them two 50-gun frigates. Now, a frigate is a ship, and when we say 50 guns here, this means like cannons. You don't want to call them artillery pieces, but they're cannons that are placed upon the frigate. So these two ships here, the Bristol and the Experiment, had 50 guns each. And then there were 5 of the smaller ships. These were also frigates, but they only had 28 guns. You can see the names of the ships here, the Actaeon, the Active, the Solby, the Syrinx, and the Cyrene here. They also had in reserve 1 mortar ship and 2 smaller vessels. Now, I want to show you, go back to my little schematic again very quickly here. Now, what the British were planning to do to knock out Fort Sullivan, they wanted to bring the ships in here and then also bring in like Marines or soldiers here and have them come up and surround the fort and take the fort. And if you could do so, then the ships could come on in, without having any harm to come do that. All right, so anyway, at all of this course of action, there were shells that were being fired back and forth between the Royal Navy and where Fort Moultrie was today. And Sergeant William Jasper was up on the parapet wall there, and he saw that the flag of the 2nd South Carolina Regiment was shot away. And as it was shot away, it floated down outside the fort, outside the parapet walls, and went down into sand below. Now, if you look at this painting here, and by the way, this painting is on the wall. It's a mural that's painted on the wall inside the Rowland Suite building here that's located on 19th Street, 5th Avenue, Jasper, Alabama. And Missy Miles is responsible for painting this. She did a very good job here. And here we see Sergeant William Jasper here. These are the individuals inside of the fort. If you look out into the background, you can see this is where smoke and clouds are present here, where the British ships were located. Well, what Sergeant William Jasper did when the flag floated outside the fort, he leaped over the parapet wall, went down into the sands, retrieved this flag itself. This was shot and shelled all around him anyway, and brought the flag back inside the fort. And of course the flag mast had been shot away, and so he took a cannon sponge staff and he mounted the flag on a cannon sponge staff and reattached it or reaffixed it, to the parapet there. And so it caused the Patriots there to kind of rally behind them. And as it turned out, the tides were not in favor of the British, and for the Royal Marines or the land units that were supposed to come in, they never could get their ships to come inside. And or make a landing there, and so the fort never did fall. Now today, if you go downtown Jasper, right next to the mural, you'll see a plaque on the side of the wall here. It tells you all about Sergeant William Jasper. Yours truly wrote the material that was engraved upon that plaque right there. All right. So anyway, if you go to Charleston, South Carolina today, and I wish you'd do so. A lot of good history right there. Fun place to be in. But if you go there today, you'll find a monument, and this monument, which is erected there, this is over at Waterfront Point. Some people call it Battery Point, which is down on the south end of where Charleston is. But you'll see this monument here. Some people try to tell you it's a Civil War monument. It is not. It's a Revolutionary War monument. And showing you, I guess that's Sergeant William Jasper up at the top there, holding the flag of the 2nd South Carolina Regiment. And so that's pretty interesting with that. Okay, so let's go beyond the battle here. And we don't hear a lot about Sergeant William Jasper in the years to follow here. He was promoted to lieutenant, and commissioned as a lieutenant, but he refused this because he just felt like, that commissioned officer needed to be able to read and write. And so for the next 3 years, from 1776 to 1795, he was present with the Swamp Fox, and they were fighting the British, fighting the Tories in South Carolina, northern parts of Georgia. Now, if you don't know what the Tories are, Tories were Americans that were fighting for the British. They were not patriots. They were fighting for the British. And for many Americans, they just despised these Tories, or some people call them loyalists there. And then finally, it's going to come to a conclusion here in October of I don't know why I keep saying that, October 1779, at the battle outside of Savannah. It's called the Battle of Savannah. This, of course, is in Georgia. And Sergeant William Jasper was carrying the flag of the 2nd carrying the flag of the 2nd South Carolina Regiment, and he was mortally wounded. He was a flag staff carrier, he was mortally wounded. The staff was picked up by another individual, a lieutenant, and that person was killed there, and the flag was subsequently taken as a war trophy by the victorious British. Now, that British unit that was victorious there was the 2nd Green Jacket Brigade. This is a British unit, by the way. All right, and so as I wrote here, the 2nd South Carolina Regiment flag was captured, and it remained as a war trophy in the Green Jackets Brigade in England, and it stayed there for many, many, many years. And in recent years, it's my understanding anyway, and I've communicated with these individuals with the Green Jacket Brigade, but it was finally sold to a person that lived in Charleston, South Carolina. And so today, it is my understanding, it's in a private museum there too. Now, this is a flag, a photograph of the original flag. This was the flag that Sergeant William Jasper had carried in 1776 and at the Battle of Savannah there. As you can see, this flag is well over 200 years old, and it's very, very faded there. But anyway, that's what it is. If you had been a student in my class, you would have seen this as a painting which was mounted on the classroom wall there. All right, so, and that's kind of interesting with that. Now, this pamphlet here was written by a person by the name of James Rivers, Major Rivers. I remember him very well. He was quite a bit older than me, but when I was a young boy, this man worked at Walker College, and he was one of the ones that did some of the original work here, and he actually wrote a paper here. You can look through this, and just telling you all about Sergeant William Jasper. Our link with the past is what it's known as, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a copy of this and take it to the Heritage Room in the Jasper Public Library and leave it there, and if anybody has an interest, they can go down and read it. It's about a 12-page paper, whatever. But nevertheless here, for Sergeant William Jasper, he now becomes an American hero. American hero of the Revolutionary War. Of course, we did win the American Revolutionary War. We became the United States and so forth. And in honor of him, and particularly in the Southeast, many of these newly formed states would name cities in their states after Sergeant William Jasper. And I looked this up the other day. There's 17 states in the United States that do have a Jasper within that state. Some of these are just small hamlets. Some of them are incorporated towns here. But I wrote these out for you. Alabama, of course, we know that. Arkansas, Georgia, all southern states here. Indiana is not. Iowa is not. Minnesota, of course, is not. Missouri, North Carolina, southern state. New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, Wyoming, there all have states named Jasper. Now, whether they were named for Sergeant William Jasper is a mystery. I just do not know that. But I know these southern states here, southeastern states, their Jaspers are after Sergeant Jasper. So when you go downtown Jasper or you're in Jasper, just think to yourself, particularly if you walk by that mural on the wall there, the Rowland Suites, and look at that, and just imagine what a hero that this was, of that period of time. All righty, thank you very much for your attention.